I'm Tavis, Smiley. This is KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to have you with us in this hour. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580. 1-800-920-1580. What a great show it's been already, these first 2 hours, and this hour promises to be just as good as the first two. On the B side of this hour, I should say two conversations in this hour, on the B side of this hour, the remarkable life of Kim Carter as told on screen by Jennifer Hudson and Taraji P. Henson. Kim Carter joins us on the backside of this hour. But we commence this hour with this. The January 6th Select Committee, House Select Committee, is expected to formally approve its final report at a public meeting next week, make that Wednesday, December 21st. The committee has been discussing, as recently as Sunday, criminal referrals for several members of the Trump administration and possibly for Mr. Trump himself. We shall see. But what if the attack on the U.S. Capitol had actually succeeded? Conversation now with Harvard Law Professor Alan Jenkins, who has written a graphic novel forthcoming called 1-6, What If the Attack on the U.S. Capitol Succeeded? Professor Jenkins, good to have you on this program. How are you, sir?
I'm well, Tavis. It's great to be on with you.
It's my great honor, Professor, to have you on. Thank you for the time, these 30 minutes. Let me start with this, and we'll get straight away into the text. I mentioned a moment ago that the January 6th Select Committee having conversations about whether or not they're in fact going to be criminal referrals for anybody, much less Mr. Trump. Two broad questions. I'll get out of your way and come back and continue in a moment. One, what have you made of the work of the January 6th Select Committee? Number two, what do you think they ought to do regarding these criminal referrals? Take it away, Professor.
Thanks. Well, the committee's been very effective, and I would say, Ted, it's surprisingly effective. You and I have watched lots of these congressional hearings, and they tend to be boring, and they drone on, and you know they're really not oriented towards everyday people. And this one was different. They used video effectively. They interviewed. They told a story. There was a narrative around what was done to subvert our democracy and what could have happened and what is still threatening to happen. And so I'd give them, if I were giving them a grade as a professor, I'd give them probably an A- or an A. A few things I would have liked to have seen that weren't there, but I thought they did a very effective job. And in terms of criminal referrals, we'll see. They have more information than they shared. I certainly think there is the foundation for criminal indictments of officials from the Trump administration. Hurdle it should be for reasons of due process, and we're going to see what the full evidence shows.
And based on what you saw, whether or not there are criminal referrals forthcoming or not from the committee, Professor Jenkins, what's your sense of what you saw and whether or not Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, ought to in fact move in that direction, never mind whether they refer or not?
Right. Well, the Justice Department is conducting its own independent investigation, and they have even more information that we don't have as viewers. But I think they need to be aggressively investigating this, and they should not shrink from indicting even a former president if the evidence warrants it. Other countries, other democracies, France, South Korea, other places have done so, and they have survived, and many would argue it's strengthened their democracy to show that no one's above the law, and that absolutely has to be the case in our country.
Many would make that argument, Professor Jenkins, that it does can in fact strengthen democracy. The flip side, as you well know, teaching this stuff every day, is that there are concerns that it would be not just demoralizing, not just debilitating, but even dangerous for our democracy, given what we saw on January the 6th, with you and I are going to discuss in just a moment here. How do you respond to those who say it'd be a dangerous thing to do to indict a former president, and in this case, particularly one named Donald Trump?
Well, our democracy is in danger. There's no question about that. There are a variety of threats that we'll talk about, and that's going to be the case whether or not politicians who were responsible for January 6th are held accountable. That danger is going to... Are American politicians above the law if the evidence shows that they violated the law? And the answer to that has to be no, and we have to be prepared for the possibility of political violence. we should be prepared for that either way.
Yeah. To your book, 1-6, what if the attack on the U.S. Capitol had succeeded? I put the word had in there. It's actually 1-6, what if the attack on the U.S. Capitol succeeded? It's a graphic novel. And when it came across my desk, I wanted to talk to you, but I was tickled when I saw it because I thought of all of your colleagues at the Harvard Law School, some still there, some no longer there, who I have known and been friends with and interviewed and just hung out with over the years, everybody from Derek Bell to Lottie Guinier to Charles Ogletree, to Randall Kennedy, to Ron Sullivan. I could do this all day long. Alan Dershowitz and others, so many, Lawrence Tribe, so many of your colleagues at the Harvard Law School. Again, I've been honored and humbled to call friends and colleagues over the course of my career. But none of them, to my mind, has written a graphic novel. So I'm like, here's a Harvard law professor who could write a book about this, a straight book. What if the attack on the U.S. Capitol succeeded? But you decided to do it as a graphic novel. Tell me why.
A number of reasons, and a bunch of the people you mentioned were my mentors and professors, and now several of them are my colleagues, and they're doing fantastic work. Those who are still with us. There was a number of reasons for choosing a graphic novel, which I'm co-writing with Gan Golan, who's a graphic novelist himself. One of the important reasons, Tavis, is that people are already starting to forget and deny and rewrite the history of January 6th and the insurrection and the threats that remain. And there will be reports and there will be articles aplenty written about that. Most of those will not reach everyday folks. Most everyday folks, the voters who drive our democracy, are not reading 100-page reports or, staying on top of every detail. They don't have the time for that. They're trying to live their lives. And yet, we need to depend on them to uphold democracy, truth, and equal dignity. And so, it struck me as a great way to reach a wide audience, to tell a compelling story, to give people a pathway for action. So there's an accompanying education and action guide that is going to give people concrete steps they can take if they're concerned about our democracy and about equal justice. And so, there might be a book in the making, a more scholarly book at some point. But right now, it seemed to me that we needed something that was going to be accessible to everyone, including people who might not have English as their first language or not be super highly educated, but have a strong sense of decency and concern about our democracy.
We'll talk more about the story you tell in the graphic novel when we come forward. Let me ask you this right quick, though. Since you went there, I want to follow you. What is your read? What do you make of this short memory that we do, in fact, have as fellow citizens?
Well, this is not new at all. So, after the Civil War and Reconstruction, there was a concerted effort to rewrite the history of slavery and black liberation, and to denigrate the heroes, the black heroes of that Reconstruction era. The same, happened after the McCarthy era, after the Civil Rights era. And so not only do we have a short memory, but there are forces at work to rewrite the history. One of the things that Frederick Douglass and the reality of what slavery was and what the Civil War was fought over and about. So it's not new. And it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that we tell the accurate history and that we prepare for the threats to our democracy that are looming in the future.
When we come forward, speaking of the future, we will imagine what might be different, where might we be right now if the attack on the U.S. Capitol had, in fact, succeeded. It is the subject of a graphic novel by Harvard law professor Alan Jenkins, who's on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Okay, so here's the truth about December 17th and why you should register on DeonRamble.com. Okay, get ready. DeonRamble.com and why you should register for a free event about contracts. December 17th to be with me, Rambo, and my special guest. First of all, if you don't have a lot of contracts right now, you need to be there. Like, the whole new year is coming in. I've been doing these events for a while now. Every event has over 500 minority business owners there. So if you haven't attended, you need to attend. And if you have attended, you probably already started winning contracts because the event's free. December 17th is a Saturday. It's only for 2 hours. My special guest can only talk up to 6 minutes. And these are the mayor's office. DeonRamble.com. So if I haven't convinced you, December 17th, to come to DeonRamble.com and register, I really don't know what else to do. It's all about contracts. DeonRamble.com, DeonRamble.com.
Where can you wrap up your holiday shopping and unwrap the holiday spirit? Lowe's, actually. Explore the wonder of Winterfest at Lowe's. Find unbeatable deals on unbeatable gifts like the latest tech. A Google Nest Smart Thermostat was $29.99, now $89.99. Or save $100 on a Blackstone 30-inch flat-top grill, now $299. Celebrate the season and check off all of your holiday shopping at Lowe's. Home to any possibility. Offer valid to 12/24 while supplies last.
The Venture X card from Capital One gives you more of what you love, like premium travel benefits and access to Taylor Swift tickets. Oh, I do love her. Earn 5 times miles on flights and 10 times miles on hotels through Capital One Travel.
Enjoy your stay in Suite 13.
Whoa, 13? That's Taylor's lucky number. Plus, get access to Taylor Swift The Eras Tour, presented by Capital One. Maybe I'll see you there. The Venture X card from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
The Institute for Diversity Certification is all about the 3 Ds: dedication, determination, and discipline. Learn more about the certification program today by calling 1-800-983-6192. Again, 1-800-983-6192. Or visit diversitycertification.org. As the #1 organization for certified diversity professionals and also certified diversity executive credentials, diversitycertification.org will provide an opportunity for you to demonstrate dedication to the field, determination to make progress, and more discipline to your process. Go today and learn more about the diversity certification system. Call 1-800-983-6192. Again, 1-800-983-6192. Or go to diversitycertification.org. That's diversitycertification.org. The standard of excellence, equity, diversity, and inclusion.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
Our guest is Harvard Law Professor Alan Jenkins. His new forthcoming graphic novel is called 1-6, What If the Attack on the U.S. Capitol Succeeded? Let me just ask that question to you directly, Professor Jenkins. What if the attack on the U.S. Capitol succeeded?
So we came very close to it succeeding, and in our graphic novel, we imagine a world in which the facts were as they were, up to the point at which Capitol Hill police officer Eugene Goodman directed the mob away from the Senate chamber. And so we imagine a universe in which the mob turned right instead of everything they said they were going to do, including the things they were chanting out in the halls. Then President Trump takes all of the actions he said he would take and those that were called for by the rioters, and our democracy is lost. And the remainder of the novel, and I don't want to spoil anything, is about what we should do about it. And we see the characters, and it's a character-driven story, we see the characters trying to figure out what to do, finding themselves in a situation in which our democracy has been replaced by an authoritarian regime.
A few questions in that regard. One, how fortunate, and that's my word, you don't have to go there, but how fortunate do you think we are that it did not succeed? Fortunate or lucky? You tell me.
Well, I mean, on the one hand, there was luck. So, there were a number of things that could have happened with the fake elector schemes that were put forward with the mob itself, with some of the folks who were armed, some of the rioters who were armed, that we are lucky they didn't happen. There was also courage. So Officer Goodman, the Capitol Hill police officers that day, some of the D.C. police officers were extremely courageous, and we know that some lost their lives. We know that there were election officials, both Republican and Democrat, who stood up to tremendous pressure and threats to state the truth and to certify an election, which we know Joe Biden won. So there was good fortune that events turned out the way they did, and good fortune that we had the people who we had in these positions to take courageous action.
I'm thinking as you're talking, Professor Jenkins, about how different this graphic novel might be if the folks who stormed those steps that day were black folk instead of white folk.
Well, we saw, right, how Black Lives Matter, peaceful Black Lives Matter protesters have been treated in marches, and how they were treated in Washington, D.C., earlier that year. So we don't even have to imagine that part, right? But to your point, yes, had black folks, armed black folks, stormed the Capitol, one can only imagine the bloodshed and the violent response we would have seen. And yet, everyone in the government found it very difficult to imagine the notion of white political violence.
Sometimes life imitates art. Sometimes art imitates life. How likely, and there are people, I hope and pray, there are people somewhere in Washington right now in some deep, dark basement who are, gaming this out. But how likely is it that our democracy could, in fact, be lost, could give way at some point to authoritarianism in this country?
I think it is frighteningly likely. In the 2022 elections, at least 179 candidates who denied the 2020 election results won their races. They were elected or reelected. 40% of Americans wrongly believed that the 2020 election was stolen. That's 61% of Republicans. More than a quarter of Republicans called the insurrectionists patriots. In 2021, 27% of them said that the rioters were Antifa. So think about that. They were both patriots and Antifa, according to half of or 26% of the respondents. And we know that hate crimes are on the rise, anti-Semitism is on the rise, transphobia, attacks on people of color. So we have a lot of very real threats, irrespective of whether the next attack takes the precise form that January 6th did. And we need to start acting like it. We're not doing all the things that we need to do in order to protect our democracy and to advance equal opportunity and rights, and to restore the voting rights that have been eroded.
I've asked this question of many others on this program, but not of Alan Jenkins, professor of law at Harvard. So let me ask you now, given what you just said, how fragile do you think our democracy is presently?
I think it's quite fragile. I think many people underestimated. I would say I underestimated how fragile the democracy was, and how many public officials would sign up for an insurrection, or at least the big lie. But there are things that we can do about it. And, I think one of the things we're doing through this graphic novel and the education guide, and by the way, folks can sign up at 16comics.com to get updates and receive the education and action guide when it's available, is to give people a pathway, things that they can do to register to vote for candidates with a demonstrated commitment to truth and multicultural democracy, to volunteer, and there's more. So, the good news is there are things that we can all do right now to try to shore up and protect our fragile democracy.
Let me ask whether or not you think on this side of 1/6 that how about I put this, that we pull ourselves back from the brink of authoritarianism, or whether or not Trump is just the start and we're going to see people of his ilk push the envelope more and more in the coming years?
Well, I think it's both, Tavis. I think we dodged a bullet in these last elections, and unfortunately there are a dozen more bullets right behind that one that we've dodged, and they're headed for us. So since the insurrection, lawmakers have passed at least 42 restrictive voting rights laws in 21 states. This is according to the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU. And that's on top of the voter suppression tactics and gerrymandering that already existed. We see that efforts to ban books are on the rise. You mentioned my former colleague and mentor, Derek Bell, who was a truth teller. And, you're seeing his books be banned remarkably. That, those are all hallmarks of a democracy that is under serious threat. And we need to start acting like it.
You mentioned a moment ago, which I'm happy to mention again, and we'll do once more before we wrap this conversation. For those who want updates on this graphic novel in process, go to 16comics.com, 16comics.com. I assume that's 1/6comics.com, correct?
It's actually the words one, the word six, and the word comics.com.
Glad we clarified that.
Spelled out.
That's important, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Very important.
Thank you.
So 16comics, all spelled out.com for updates on this graphic novel in progress, in process as well. But let me ask how you're feeling about the process and how you're treating the story on the actual pages. I mean, it's great to work with an artist to bring this to life, but give me some sense of the treatment.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I'm a comic book geek from way back. I love comics, and I love democracy, and I think this comic is one way that we can help to shore up the democracy. Our main artist, Will Rosado, is a veteran DC and Marvel, is giving life to these images in ways that, honestly, Tavis, are kind of chilling. I have research assistants working on the fact-checking and the details, and so all the time I'm getting new information about what was planned and what is still lying ahead of us, and it is very anxiety-producing. But one of the solutions to that is getting the story out there along with recommendations on what we can do.
Who's the audience? You mentioned that you're a comic book geek and have been for years, but you're also a professor of law at Harvard. So clearly, the audience of those who love comic books is vast and deep and wide. So for a book like this, that's tackling a very, very, very serious subject matter, but doing it in the context of a graphic novel, who's the audience, you think?
Yeah, there are really two main audiences. So one is pop culture fans, people who maybe have not thought that much about the insurrection or, don't have time to, but love comic books and graphic novels or just, fiction and science fiction, and will pick this thing story for them. We worked very hard to make it entertaining and exciting and also informative and educational, and that some number of those folks will go further to learn more through the Education and Action Guide and to take action to shore up our democracy. The other audience is people who are already active, who already understand these threats, and I want to give them another tool to recruit more people, to organize, to bring to town hall meetings. You may know this, but not only did John Lewis have a graphic novel, but Martin Luther King Jr. and the SELC had a comic book back in the 50s that described the Montgomery bus boycott and nonviolent action, and lots of people across the South picked that up and used it. Even in the Arab Spring of a decade ago, you had an Arabic translated version. I have a copy on my wall that was used by organizers to advance democracy. So, my highest aspiration for this graphic novel is that it will both educate, move hearts and minds, and be a tool for action.
Yeah, well, don't sleep on black Harvard law professors. They can do a little bit of everything. Alan Jenkins, professor of law at Harvard. Chapter 1 of this graphic novel set to release just weeks from now in early 2023. Again, for more information about the graphic novel and the process in progress, 16comics, all spelled out, 16comics.com. It's called 16. What if the attack on the U.S. Capitol succeeded? Its author, again, is Harvard Law Professor Alan Jenkins. Professor Jenkins, good to have you on. Congrats on this project, and happy holidays to you, my friend.
Same to you, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Stay strong. More of our program after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Doug Davis, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Griner is said to be doing well as she recovers at a Texas military hospital after being released from Russian custody. Appearing on ABC's This Week, the White House's John Kirby described Griner as being in very good spirits and in good health. A bipartisan bill would ban the popular social media site TikTok from operating in the U.S. The legislation, introduced by Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio, would prohibit social media companies under the influence of China, Russia, or other foreign countries of concern. Drake is the owner of a necklace that features 42 engagement ring diamonds. TMZ reports Drizzy put exactly 42 engagement ring diamonds in the necklace for all of the times he wanted to propose in the past. Drake wore the necklace at Lil Baby's birthday concert last weekend in Atlanta. And that's the latest. I'm Doug Davis from the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Traffic still slowing in the mid-city area on the 10 westbound. With that wreck working at National Boulevard in your left lane, it is jammed up from Arlington Avenue. In Highland Park, the 110 South Drive slows down at Avenue 26 down to Sunset. Still busy on the Harbor Freeway, 110 northbound, making your way into downtown, right around Manchester Avenue up to the 4 level.
NetSpend all account with perks that add up. Banking services provided by and account established by Pathward N.A. Member FDIC. Deposit account opening is subject to registration and ID verification. Terms and costs apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers delivered their best game of the season with a 20-point win over the Boston Celtics. Paul George had a game-high 26 points. The Celtics are staying in town to play the Lakers tonight. Jackson State wide receivers coach T.C. Taylor will replace Deion Sanders as Jackson State's new head football coach. The arrest of University of Texas men's basketball coach Chris Beard is further proof that misbehavior or criminal acts by sports figures is not always limited to athletes. Beard was arrested on charges of felony assault on a family or household member. He was placed on indefinite suspension without pay. Texas is ranked number 2 in the country in this week's AP poll. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call me your MVP.
Special Needs Network Incorporated, together with Assembly Member Isaac Bryan, cordially invites you to Christmas Care Exchange in the Park, Sunday, December 18th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. in Lamert Park, located on 43rd Place in Crenshaw. Experience a day of giving, love, community, and support. There will be celebrity guests, arts and crafts, resource fair, and more. Come take a picture with Santa. Enjoy the DJ. This is a free event open to the public Sunday, December 18th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Don't miss the Christmas Care Exchange in Lamert Park, located on 43rd Place in Crenshaw. This is the season of giving, and the Special Needs Network, together with Assembly Member Isaac Bryan, wants to bless you Sunday, December 18th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. There will be toys for all kids up to 18 years old. Children must be present. See you Sunday. Thanks to our sponsors, Let's Behold, The Butterfly Effect, and SEIU 721, State Council on Developmental Disabilities, Niagara Water, Lakeshore Learning, Puck Schools, Crystal Stairs, Beach Cities, Beta Gamma Nu, Casa Lopez, and Los Fabulocos.
Did you know that LA County Library has free Wi-Fi at all 85 library locations? That's right, free Wi-Fi. Now they also offer free Wi-Fi in parking lots at participating locations. Library location, park in a library parking spot, bring your own device, connect to the Wi-Fi, and you're ready to connect with your friends and family, do some online shopping, browse your social media accounts, answer emails, do your homework, and so much more. You won't need a library card to connect, but you can sign up for one while you're there and get access to free books, ebooks, music, movies, and more. For additional information, log on to lacountylibrary.org/Wi-Fi, lacountylibrary.org/Wi-Fi, that's lacountylibrary.org/Wi-Fi.
Find a righteous rage, and don't be afraid to say what you see. For KBLA Talk 1580.
We are indeed and delighted to have you along with us in this hour. In this hour, The Remarkable Life of Kim Carter as Told on Screen by Jennifer Hudson and Taraji P. Henson. Kim Carter joins us right now. Kim Carter, how are you today?
I'm good, brother. How are you doing?
If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am doing remarkably well, and I'm delighted to be in conversation with you for these 30 minutes in the last part of our show today. Let me just give you the opportunity to answer this question. I can do it, but I want the audience to hear from you. Who is Kim Carter, and why is her life so remarkable that Jennifer Hudson and Taraji P. Henson wanted to put it on screen?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks for having me on your show. I admire you for so long, so I really feel delighted to be here.
Thank
you. And
I
would just say that I would like to just give, all honor to God, because if I tell you, brother, that I was one of those ones who was defeated, mentally at zero, homelessness, drug addiction, incarceration, and the sum total of my life was zero, but for the grace of God, I received a hand up and not a handout. And when I got that hand up, brother, my eyes opened up and I could just see how much, I would say, oppression, distraction, and basically poverty and all the things that systematically design people to all that played a part in my life, and I thought, wow, where was the safety net? Where was the information I needed that when I did want to change, where could I change at? And when I saw that, I became, evoked to take responsibility not only for my life, but to help other women learn they can actually change their lives as well. So I started Time for Change Foundation, and I did it unapologetically. Like, I did it without letting people look at me and say, oh, well, she's been incarcerated. I was like, okay, so was Martin Luther King. Oh, well, she's been homelessness. Being without a house is basically a problem of capitalism, because there's more people that need housing, and the lack of housing that's available to us is not because we're not able to build. It's because we are bound by policies that say you can't build here or you can't build for these folks. And so I just started seeing what I can do to make a difference. So I went from, being homeless to building affordable housing. I went from breaking laws to actually making laws and becoming a policymaker myself. And so I think it's the fact that I just wasn't going to give up, brother. I just was not going to stay relegated to homelessness and watching life go by as if, I really wanted to just be out. I just need the place to change at.
Yeah. There's a reason why Kim Carter became a CNN hero. This wonderful program that CNN does every year where they recognize persons around the country who have succeeded against all kinds of odds and who are engaged in work and witness that is empowering to all the rest of us. She is a CNN hero. But again, beyond that, her story is so amazing, and you've gotten a sense of it just in her one response, that Jennifer Hudson and Taraji P. Henson wanted to put this on screen, and they have. Kim, let me ask whether or not, and I'm always a fan of these sorts of phrases, but I think you'll take my point. Let me ask whether or not, given what you just told us about your backstory, whether you were born on the wrong side of the tracks, or whether something happened that put you on the wrong track.
Well, I like to say a combination of both. First of all, let's look at who laid the tracks, right? So was the tracks laid for me to be on the right or the wrong side? And why is there a difference between tracks? And we go back to the system that created the divide to begin with. So I was born on the side of the tracks that was not highly favored. Just put it like that, right? And then the other part of that is, my child care provider was a pedophile. So by the time I was 5 years old, I'd already been sexually assaulted. And as a result of that, the inside, my internal was damaged, and my ability to feel good about myself as a young girl was already smashed. And so as I traveled into, my teenage years, I was always looking for the validation that, I didn't receive being from a single mom. And, it just snowballed. And again, being on that side of the tracks where it's heavily populated with drug activity, crime activity, poverty, and violence, that was all I witnessed. So I just grew up in that.
Now, I was just discussing earlier in the program today with one of our guests, and having a discussion, I should say, and I used a phrase that I've often used, which I believe, that we are who we are because somebody loved us. We are who we are because somebody loved us. That someone might not be your mom or your daddy, it might not be your biological parents, but we are who we are because somebody loved us. And I was reading some comments during the break, and somebody responded, Tavis, you're correct about that, but there are those of us who are not who we could have been because somebody did not love us. I hadn't considered the other side of that equation until I saw that message, and that is true. What say you about that latter part, Kim, that when black babies don't get the love, the attention, and the protection that they need, they end up oftentimes having troubled childhoods. They end up using drugs. They end up incarcerated. They end up homeless. All of those stages are things that you had to endure in part because there wasn't somebody loving you and looking out for you.
Well, I'm going to act like Tina Turner and say what love got to do with it. Because when you're born into an environment and there's conditions, right? And so, if you have a single mom who has children, resources and services that are basically designed to keep you in an everlasting poverty. And then you're put into positions where you're not really making choices, you're making do. Right? And so if you look around and see how you're making do with what's available. I like to use this word called access. The access means the ability to see, touch, and feel. So if I don't have access to what I need, whether it's help, whether it's child care, whether it's proper food on the table, then I can't really do the best I could do if I had access. And so, I like to say the love, first of all, the love comes from within, but when we was born, we came into this world, there was somebody hugging on us, kissing on us, squeezing us tight. If I walk around the community today and I see people laying on the ground, literally sleeping in the middle of the sidewalk, sleeping in doorways, I remember when that person was born, there was people there hugging on them, kissing on them, and loving on them. So what does love have to do with that when you're born into an environment that doesn't afford you opportunity and equal access to what you need to thrive? All communities need certain things to thrive. And I say that food, I say green spaces for parks, I say definitely access to summer jobs for you, I say access to health care, not sick care, but health care. See, some of us grew up going to the doctor when we were sick. We never went just for well child visits because we didn't have the luxury of that because we had parents who didn't want to miss pay. So there's a lot of conditions that go into that. But I would say that deep down inside of me, the little girl that was abused, she really wanted to live. And it's her voice that rose up, decided to allow me to walk into what I call my own brand dignity. So when CNN came with the CNN Heroes, it was 50,000 nominations in 8 different countries, and I made the top 10. And I was sitting there with what I would call my peers, and these were people who I said, oh, my God, they're doing amazing work. I never saw myself as doing amazing work. I knew I was doing the work. I knew I was doing a good work because I could see lives transform, but I never saw the bigger impact of it because I was so busy doing it. And even to this day, if I'm on the stage not getting an award, you're going to always know that I'm Kim Carter, formerly incarcerated, homeless, and all that. And then we could talk about the other accolades, Ebony Power 100, Unsung Hero, KCET. Like there's a list that goes on of accolades. But who am I at the core of who my being is? I'm a little girl that didn't want to get.
I want to talk about your Time for Change Foundation when we come forward. But to your point about being that little girl that didn't want to give up, how did you pull yourself up out of this situation, these circumstances that you found yourself in? How did you pull out?
Well, I had access to a treatment program. So I was actually able to go to a treatment program where I had therapy that allowed me to know that I was not what had happened to me. And that all the numerous times that I had, got out of prison and was supposed to be doing reentry and I was denied housing and denied jobs, that those things was not because of me, but those was because of systematic barriers that have been put in place that will continue to recycle me into institutions like a barcode, like a product, and not really support me and my well-being. So when like I said, I became woke and conscious, but I had to go and get an understanding of what had happened to me. And I had to see why was I having those feelings. And I'm telling you, once those feelings were processed, and I was able to get into I call the Women's Policy Institute, and I learned about laws and systems, like who decides the building and the land, who decides what goes where. Why is our community oversaturated with a bunch of laundromats and check-casting places, and other communities got green parks and sports, and like who decides what? Like who decides what goes on what side of that track? And that is all a dictatorship. It comes from a system that did not want to see us prosper as a people. So not only did I create Time for Change Foundation for women wish to change their life, we also created another entity that is being developed right now, and it's called the BBOP, Black and Brown Opportunities for Profit Center. And we're proud of this 10,000 square foot space that's being developed into a high-tech area for women of color, Black and brown women, to be able to come in and create their own businesses. To be the best employee, but people didn't teach about how to be a boss. But we want to have some bosses around here so we can have some employees and we can be in control of our own finances.
Kim Carter is a boss, and so CNN understands that, and that's why she's a CNN hero. But so does Jennifer Hudson and Taraji P. Henson, and they wanted, once they came into the awareness of who she is, to put her story on screen. It's a remarkable story of, as she said, of a little girl who did not want to give up. We'll continue our conversation with Kim Carter when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
This Sunday and every Sunday is the African Marketplace and Drum Circle Community Market. Get free groceries, essential resources, and buy black from local merchants of arts, beauty, custom black merchandise, and more. Choose from a wide variety of cuisines, custom-made clothing, jewelry, and a lot more. Experience the true essence of Africatown at Lamert Park every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Join the Drum Circle, dance, enjoy live performances, connect with other conscious black people. Experience black excellence every Sunday in Africatown at Lamert Park. You can find us on Degnan Boulevard near Vernon and Crenshaw in the heart of Africatown at Lamert Park. That's the African Marketplace and Drum Circle Community Market. Join us for music, shopping, food, and fun this and every Sunday. Support black businesses. Recycle black. African Marketplace and Drum Circle Community Market every Sunday in Africatown at Lamert Park. Brought to you by Africatown Enterprise and the African Village Vendors Association.
Study reveals barriers to mental health for Black and Latina women in California. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News. A poll conducted by Eviteris, sponsored by Black Women Organized for Political Action and Hispanias Organized for Political Equity, found that 77% of some 800 women participants experienced some form of discrimination due to personal characteristics. More than 3 in 5 respondents have had mental health concerns for which they did not seek care. These same women reported often having had negative experiences with providers. 70% of Black women and 54% of Latinas reported racial or ethnic discrimination. Another 59% of Black women and 55% of Latinas report assumptions were made about their income and education levels. 40% of Latinas reported discrimination based on assumptions about their ability to communicate in English, while 28% reported assumptions about their documentation or immigration status. I'm Maisha Cairo, and that's your K-Black Minute News.
Central Neighborhood Health Foundation is a full-service network of federally qualified health care centers that serves local communities Riverside and San Bernardino counties. CNHF clinics provide low-cost to no-cost, compassionate, comprehensive, quality health care, which includes primary care services for chronic disease and diabetes management, pediatric and women's services, preventive care, vision and dental screenings, COVID-19 testing and vaccines, flu vaccines, behavioral health, HIV, and substance use services. Virtual telehealth visits are available from the comfort of your home with highly qualified physicians and medical professionals. CNHF also provides peer support specialist training and help with housing navigation. Central Neighborhood Health Foundation. Your wellness is our priority. Comprehensive care built on trust and respect. For more information, visit cnhfclinics.org or call 213-536-5815 today to locate a clinic near you.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Kim Carter, I am so turned on by this 10,000 square foot tech space that you are developing for these Black women. Tell me a bit more about that, please.
Okay, so after George Floyd and all the emotions that, were consuming, and then looking at the pandemic and realizing that the most essential worker was my black and brown sisters, right, with these jobs that basically needed them to continue working despite, a deadly pandemic. And then I'll say, we're not going to go back to the way things was. Like when the pandemic was ending, we're not going back to business as usual. Everybody know about disparities and inequities, and people want to come the equity included. I'm like, well, what was you before the pandemic? Was you not diversified? Did you not understand equitable practices? Was you not inclusive? So the only way for us to really move forward is to create something, an economy that works for us. So I got 10 of the smartest women that I know. We came together and we brainstormed. What will it take for us to have an economy that works for us? How do we recreate what was happening in Tulsa, Oklahoma with Black Wall Street? How do we get to a place where we can build actual generational wealth for black and brown women? And we decided what we needed, and we created a blueprint, and then God in his infinite wisdom gave me the space what I need in order to develop this space. So it's happening right here in the city of San Bernardino, and we're 95% done. And we decided to bring culture into the facility because it speaks to us and our heritage. So if anybody asks me about anybody else, I'm going to ask, don't ask me, ask them. I'm talking about black and brown women. It's specifically. And so this is a space where you're going to see, Madam C.J. Walker come to life when you walk in. You're going to see a lot of brilliant black and brown entrepreneur women who have already paved the way, and we're going to lift up what's possible. $372 billion transferred through the internet last year on Wi-Fi. There's no reason why black and brown women cannot have what they need in order to access some of that capital. And then we can start talking about what's going on in the community, because we can actually buy the spaces and the places that we need. Then we can talk about what's going on in the schools, because we can actually start funding when we want our children to learn. We have to get less reliant on a system that does not respect us or appreciate us, and become more reliant on self. So that's what the bebop is for.
Kim Carter got it going on in San Bernardino, and I ain't mad at her, man. She's putting in some work. As I said, she is a boss, and she's putting in some work in San Bernardino. It's no wonder that CNN and everybody else is acknowledging the work that she's doing on behalf of black women, brown women everywhere. In our remaining moments with Kim Carter, when we come forward, I want to ask her what it felt like to have Jennifer Hudson, J. Hud, and Taraji P. Henson reach out to put her story on screen. I want to ask about the Time for Change Foundation, and I want to close by asking her, given all that she has endured, what it feels like getting up every day and engaging a work and a witness that is transforming the lives, as Sly Stone might say, of everyday people. Our remaining moments with Kim Carter when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where we turn red lights to green lights and keep it moving.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. Great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be. We share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net. And together, we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
If you have certain chronic conditions, such as heart disease, asthma, diabetes, and you're 19 years of age or older, 52,
36,
42, you may be at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor with Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. The most commonly reported side effect was pain at the injection site. For additional common side effects and full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com. I'm going to ask my doctor
about getting vaccinated
with Prevnar 20.
The Los Angeles Urban League helps African American and others in underserved communities achieve true social parity, economic self-reliance, and civil rights. For over 100 years, Los Angeles Urban League has ensured our communities have access to careers with living wages, opportunities to start and grow businesses, and clear pathways to personal and professional growth. Programs like BizCamp, Construction Career Academy, Spa Business Ready, and B-Warp. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Program are examples of the ongoing events designed to make our centennial mission to rebuild Black Wall Street right here in LA a reality. To support the Los Angeles Urban League with your time, talents, and donations, visit laul.org. That's laul.org. The Los Angeles Urban League is a proud sponsor of Urban Family Focus Saturdays at 7 a.m. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
I've only got about 3 minutes left in conversation with our esteemed guest in this hour, Kim Carter. Let me ask a few questions in those 3 minutes. Number one, Kim, how's it feel when Jay Hud and Taraji P. Henson want to put your story on screen?
Well, first of all, let me just say I was totally honored, and Jennifer Hudson, Taraji P. Henson are both amazing human beings, but they're sisters that are so authentic and so real. You know, as you might know, I was just on the Jennifer Hudson show October the 6th. I was able to talk about the new book I wrote called Waking Up to My Purpose, and it's also available from the Jennifer Hudson show's website. But it was just amazing. It was surreal. I had to get my hugs and my getting this over with the first day so I can go ahead and and get back to business and actually help them to do this short film. And so I was just really honored, And the other part of that is Time for Change Foundation. Just let your listeners know.
Sure.
If you like anything you hear about Time for Change Foundation, our number is 909-886-2999. Over 1,500 women reach self-sufficiency. We've helped over 317 children from foster care reunite back with their moms from foster care. And the other part about Time for Change Foundation is a place where you get to come and create a life that you can love. So regardless of your background, homelessness, incarceration, domestic violence, when you're ready to change, we're here for you. Our website is www.timeforchangefoundation.org. Again, that's timeforchangefoundation.org. You want to know about the Bebop, you can go on our website, and we will be having a grand opening coming up here soon. And I would love, Mr. Tavis Smiley, if you could come be a part of that.
You send me the invitation, and if I'm not on the air, I'll give you my word on the air right now. I'm going to come. I'm going to come to San Bernardino and share in that celebration with you. When you y'all cut the ribbon for this center for these black and brown women, I'll promise you I will come to San Bernardino as long as I'm not on the air. So send me the information, and we'll make that happen. Let me close with this. Given all that you've been through in these last 90 seconds, how does it feel waking up every day, engaging in a work and a witness that is helping black women and brown women to have access to the things they need that can help transform their lives?
I feel really good that my life turned out to be worth something and not nothing. So, I feel good that my grandkids can look at me and they can see Nana is okay. I feel good that my daughter, who, I wasn't able to be there for her when she was younger, but I was able to come back real strong, can look at me and be proud of her mother. I just feel really good. I feel good in my skin. I feel good to be a black woman in America today. Today, right? And I'm going to walk around with that feeling good all day long, because at the end of the day, I know I get to manifest and create that which I want to see, which I can achieve. And I just walk around in that and knowing that, because God who strengthens me.
If that don't give you a shot in the arm to close our show, I don't know what will. You can't close the show better than that. Her name is Kim Carter. She gave you all the websites, all the phone numbers, but it's Time for Change Foundation. Look it up. Time for Change Foundation, doing some great work out in San Bernardino, California. CNN recognizes her as a CNN hero, and Jay Hud and Taraji putting her story on the small screen. I love it. I love the story. I love her work. Kim, good to have you on. Happy holidays, and I'll talk to you soon. You stay strong.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you.
All the best to you. I appreciate you and love you back. That's our show for today. Tune in tomorrow morning, Lord willing, 9 a.m. to 12 noon Pacific time for another episode of Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580. Time now for the KBLA Midday Money Chain. Up next, the Millionaires Roundtable with Lynn Richardson. After that, I head of the Crypto Curve with Naja Roberts, who celebrates her 100th show this Friday. I just reading that last night on my notes on my desk. Congratulations to Naja with the Crypto Show every day at 1 p.m. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Doug Davis, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A new Airbnb report is validating what many black travelers say about hosts discriminating against them. The home-sharing company acknowledged it has work to do fixing racial disparities, including making the booking process more equitable. Inflation appears to be slowing down. Inflation slowed more than expected in November, with the consumer price